Uh, Good afternoon. So everything has been really amazing to sort of hear all of these different aspects. So thank you, Janine, for pulling all of these amazing people together. So I want to welcome you to panel number 4, the final panel, and we're focused on funding and systems change to advance resilient, equitable community food systems. So I'm Nicole Vaughn. I'm a faculty member at Rowan University in the Public Health and Wellness degree program. And my colleague, Renata Blumberg, is at Montclair State University, and she's going to be welcoming the panelists that we have lined up for today.
Is Renata on and just having tech issues, or why don't you go ahead and
okay.
Sorry.
No problem. So our first speaker is Rucha Gadre. She joined, and I'm going to read a little bit about each of the speakers. Renata just joined, so I'll read about Rucha, and then Renata can introduce the rest of the panelists. So Rucha Gadre joined the New Jersey Economic Development Authority as the Senior Advisor in Food Security and Innovations in August of 2021. In her current role, she's focused on identifying ways to strengthen existing community-based programs and really help address food security and design and implement initiatives and approaches to improve food access and food security across the state of New Jersey. Rucha has over 12 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector, contributing towards capacity building, program design, and implementation, and forming strategic partnerships across the various sectors. Currently, she's managing $1.5 million in food security planning grant program dollars at the EDA. So, Renata, do you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't have a camera option. I don't know why I joined with a panelist link. So sorry about that. So I'll just go on to the next bio. We have on the panel Lisa Pitz, who's the director of Hunger Free New Jersey and has been with the organization for over 20 years. Lisa works with community partners across the state to improve access to healthy foods for New Jersey residents, educating the public and policymakers about hunger and working to create solutions. A veteran at community organizing, Lisa helps communities tap into federal nutrition programs to feed hungry children. Lisa has a Master of Social Work and over 30 years experience working on hunger and poverty related issues. And finally, we have Geri Henchy. She's the Director of Nutrition Policy at the Food Research and Action Center. Geri's work focuses on nutrition policies, such as increasing the healthfulness of nutrition programs necessary to reach the goals of eradicating domestic hunger and improving the nutrition and health of low-income individuals and families. She has been honored to receive awards for her work on child nutrition programs. And she's the author of numerous policy briefs on the federal child nutrition programs, such as Making WIC Work for Multicultural Communities, Best Practices for Outreach and Nutrition Education. She's a registered dietitian and has an MPH in nutrition from the University of California, Berkeley.
Okay, I don't see Geri.
Yeah, I don't think Geri is here, and I just messaged Marco to see if he was filling in for her.
Okay. So Rucha, let's start with you. So can you tell us a little bit about the background of the FDR program and its aim, and tell us about the planning grants that are open right now and what kind of entities are eligible to apply, and if and how community stakeholders can be involved.
Thank you, Nicole. Good afternoon, everyone. I would just want to start this, my part of the panel discussion, by saying that today has been such a wonderful day, very enriching. The information shared across all the panels have been very helpful. And I know that there's a lot for us to take back and digest and see how we can contribute towards the great work that we have to do in 2023. So let me share some information about the Economic Development Authority and what the Food Desert Relief Act is going to be about. So the EDA, regardless of which product or program we work on, is focused on making New Jersey a national model for inclusive, sustainable economic development by focusing on strategies that build stronger and fairer New Jersey. And one of these strategies is around economic security, looked at a little bit differently. It focuses on the very fabric of our state, which is, the people. How can we ensure that they have access to food, or childcare, or even healthcare around maternal health? So we have different ways in which we are looking at the economic security for the state of New Jersey. Primarily focusing on the food aspect. The Food Desert Relief Act is one of the programs that's included in the New Jersey Economic Recovery Act, which was signed by Governor Phil Murphy in January 2021. So what it does is the act itself, the Recovery Act, creates packages of incentive programs, financing programs, grants and loans. And one such program is the Food Desert Relief Act. The Food Desert Relief Act is a total of $240 million of tax credits, so $40 million each year for 6 years. And it allows us to invest in developing new grocery stores, supporting the operation of grocery stores, strengthening existing community-based initiatives that are focused on addressing food needs for people in New Jersey. Also help us, over the last 2 years, we saw the shift in e-commerce. All of us were forced to shop online. So there was, at the very start, there was some capacity gap, but it was very quickly, overcome by retailers taking the shift and building a platform where all of us could do our grocery shopping online. So how do we now make sure that all retailers across the state have this ability, food retailers across the state have the ability to, allow SNAP recipients, big recipients to shop online. And it also leaves some room for us to be very creative and innovative around bringing in some new ways of implementing programs or new programs, and sticking to the theme of this whole day, not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but is there some gap for innovation so that the service delivery can be improved? So that's the main focus, the 4 big buckets. But how do we do this is the tax credit is very straightforward. Development costs for new supermarkets and operating costs. But this is only for the first or the second supermarket in a food desert community. And I'll very quickly go over what the food desert community designation was and how did that come about. But we are also able to sell the tax credit, which is a very unique opportunity that this program has allowed us, which means that sell the tax credits to generate cash, use that cash to develop grant programs. Through the grant programs, we envision, creating other smaller buckets under it, such as maybe funding some technology pieces, equipment, or again, providing grants to existing food security initiatives that have been meeting the needs of the community. But overall, there are 2 other programs that we are focusing our work, which is the Food Security Planning Grant Program, and one that is very everyone's favorite, and as Governor Phil Murphy has said, it's a win-win-win, is the Sustain and Serve New Jersey program. The Food Security Planning Grant Program, we are utilizing up to $1.5 million to help to get plans from communities. So municipalities, redevelopment agencies, or county governments can work with community stakeholders, individuals residing in the communities, to figure out how can they leverage a distressed asset, whether it's an abandoned warehouse or an open, just a parking lot that hasn't been utilized for years, but use that distressed asset to improve food access. And we wanted to make sure that the community has a say in it, because we believe that when you want to design something for the people, it's best to design it with them. Their voices are important and must be heard. And this gives us, at least at the very start of the program, to some plans that we can look forward to and, think about, what does it mean to open a grocery store in a community that didn't have one, Or is there appetite for supporting a food co-op? Or, do communities want to leverage a distressed asset and bring in a farmer's market? So we can look at what has worked across the state and try and replicate that here, but it's reassuring that, when a community itself says that this is what we want to do. So that's the Food Security Planning Grant Program. It's still open. The applications are still open. They close on December 20th. So, for all those who are listening, I know it's you don't have a lot of time, but if you're still interested, you could work with your local government to see if you could submit an application. And then last but not least, the Sustain and Serve New Jersey program. It provides grants to nonprofit organizations to buy meals from New Jersey-based restaurants and distribute those meals at no cost, free to the community members. We've given more than $50 million in funding up until now, and very shortly we will be coming up to the 5 million meal mark milestone. So it's been a very really good program for the community, the small businesses, and also for us at EDA to see that we have been a part of the solution that is kind of working towards meeting the very basic needs of communities who are food insecure. So those are kind of the a short version of what we are doing with the Food Desert Relief Act, our planning grant, and the Sustain and Serve New Jersey program.
Thank you so much, Rucha. So I wanted to sort of ask a couple of follow-up questions. So with the Sustain and Serve program, will that include farmers? Will be able to include sort of CSA boxes for farmers as part of that program?
It not for the way it's designed. This is, this program came about as a quick solution for what was highlighted during the pandemic. We saw that small businesses were finding it very hard. And in this particular situation, the restaurants were facing a big challenge of keeping their doors open, and communities were finding it hard to make their needs met, which was, access to food. So the program design is such that we fund nonprofits to then spend the funding amount with New Jersey-based restaurants to purchase meals, which can then be distributed to these are ready pre-cooked meals, not like just raw ingredients or raw materials. These are cooked meals that can be then distributed to communities, who need them the most. The suggestion is great, but it doesn't kind of fit in the program design the way it has been designed and has been done very successfully for the 3 phases. Phase 1, which was, in 21, phase 2 happened in 21-22, and now phase 3, which is ongoing and ends in 23.
Now, I wanted to sort of ask another question. So the Food Desert Relief Program, so this tax credits have to be sold in order for it to generate funds for that program, correct? Is that,
yes.
That's it? And then, so what is the timeline, and then who can apply for those funds?
So when I first started this job, I was like, oh, tax credit, how complicated can that be? It is extremely complicated. We've been working on writing the regulations in just making those tax credits available for the development of grocery stores, supermarkets, and across the 50 food desert communities. Selling the tax credit, again, I thought would be very easy, but it isn't. It's a little bit of a complicated process, and it does take time, but we are hoping to get something out to the community, at least in terms of a definite timeline, early next year. But once the tax credits are sold and cash is generated, the grant program gives us more flexibility than the tax credit program. So we can create grant programs that the nonprofits can be eligible for, restaurants can be eligible for, or the entity pool for the grant program is not limited. It can be your traditional grant making where it's given to nonprofits and foundations, or it could be a modified version of it where we can give it to government entities, small businesses. So we just have to think about what is the best approach for a problem that we are wanting to solve, and who fits that mold of the program that we are designing.
Thank you. I think one of the things that you said was really sort of listening to the community and listen to the stakeholders that can sort of give input into how these funds could be used and really sort of reach the most New Jerseyans. I sort of want to circle back. Geri Henchy, I see that you're there. Geri Henchy, as Dr. Blumberg mentioned, is from the Food Research and Action Center. So it's a national organization. So the first question is, what do you see as some of the policy or programming trends across the country? So we've heard locally about what New Jersey is doing through what Rucha has described, but can you sort of give us the national picture as well?
Sure, definitely. Thanks. I'm happy to be here to be part of the 2022 State Food Systems Symposium. I enjoyed watching it last year. And so it's an honor to be on this panel today with such accomplished and committed speakers as Rucha and Lisa. So in answer to this question, what do I see as some of the policy and programming trends across the country? I identified two categories of policy and programming trends across the country that are relevant to efforts to advance food justice and support food security. One, the COVID era program flexibilities and increased benefits. They have reduced stigma, they've streamlined access, and they've improved the impact of a broad range of programs, including the federal food programs, SNAP, school meals, TFAP for the food banks, including health programs like Medicaid and a lot of agriculture programs. So that's one big trend. The second one has been COVID's impact on the food supply chain and the disruptions of the food supply chain, in addition to looking at the role of food workers and the fact, as we just heard before, Rucha was pointing out, people had to be at home, they either had to go online or they ended up shopping more locally. And I think that all of that has shined a light on the importance of food systems and the need for equity in a way that just regular people weren't paying attention to before. And that has definitely resulted in some policy changes. And we see that. For example, we have seen now some targeting of the ARA funds to serve and look at giving opportunities into the procurement systems for underserved farmers and ranchers for both TFAP and school meals, that's big money. And before, there was no effort made to target that procurement opportunities to historically underserved farmers and ranchers. So I think those are important. And then in terms of the question, are there any programmatic funding initiatives that you think New Jersey is poised for or should be pursuing? To answer that question, I would turn to the Robert Wood Johnson funded foundation work we've done with many of the stakeholders who are here today at the symposium. That informed a publication, Hunger and Its Solutions in New Jersey, which was a landscape analysis that did identify emerging opportunities for further investment to mitigate hunger. So this report found that New Jersey does great work to end hunger, that there are innovative uses of funding streams, but there are significant opportunities for New Jersey state and local organizations to bring in more federal funding. So there's definitely money left on the table. We wanted to give everyone the benefit of this research and the valuable input of the New Jersey stakeholders. So we wrote Hunger and Its Solutions in New Jersey Federal Funding Opportunities Guide. And this covers an overview of program descriptions, funding amount, timeline. And some of the key categories of funding there are food and nutrition funding, which includes GusNIP funding, which is underutilized in New Jersey, food systems development funding, health funding, a lot of which comes through the CDC. An example there would include the REACH grants, which are the racial and ethnic approaches to community health. And then community development funding included HUD funding. So that guides there, and that is an opportunity. Finally, I'd say one last point about trends across the country and New Jersey and what that means. New Jersey is a leading state for passing and fully implementing anti-hunger and food systems legislation. The advocates, the stakeholders, the academic researchers, the legislature under General Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, the governor, the state agencies, including the State Department of Agriculture, really are truly impressive in the way that they have worked together to get this legislation, a whole series of legislations, and really fully implemented. That is something that is a standout when I scan the nation. It's that is a great asset. And I don't need to go into the details of what that is because Lisa, who is one of the leaders in this great work, I'm sure is going to, but that's kind of how I see nationally, and then dropping down into New Jersey.
Thank you so much. I see that Marco is here as well, Marco Navarro from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Is there anything else you'd like to follow up on that Geri mentioned?
Yeah, I think Geri covered it. I'm here on standby, so I think Geri, thanks for that, Geri, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Renata.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now a question for Lisa. Lisa, what were the Hunger Free New Jersey's big policy or legislative wins that advanced systems change in 2022?
Thanks, Renata, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here, and it makes me so excited when I hear somebody who has the landscape of the whole nation say that New Jersey's in the lead for our efforts. So it's exciting. And again, I want to sort of echo what Geri said about we are very fortunate in New Jersey to have such a supportive administration, to have a champion like Speaker Coughlin, to have wonderful state agencies that administer the federal nutrition programs like our Department of Agriculture and the Department of Human Services Division of Family Development. So we're really fortunate to have such wonderful partners in this work to alleviate hunger and food insecurity. Some of the legislative wins, and Speaker Coughlin alluded to it in his message as well. You know, Hunger Free New Jersey, along with our partners, really works to change policy and practice to ensure that all in New Jersey have access to healthy food. And we really do that in a variety of ways. Sometimes that systems change can be made through legislative initiatives. Sometimes it's made by working with the agencies that administer the programs to get regulatory changes made, tweaks to the programs that make it easier for people to access nutrition assistance. And then on the local level, really working with local level partners, community faith-based organizations, school districts, colleges and universities throughout the state, and all those local stakeholders to have these conversations and to work together to improve access to these programs on the local level. So I just wanted to sort of frame it out in terms of our work. We really try to come at it from every level, as well as engage in federal advocacy too. So over the course of the last couple of years, there have been, as Speaker Coughlin mentioned, 30 anti-hunger bills signed, which is incredible. I've been with Hunger Free New Jersey for 20 years. I've only been the director for about 7 or 8 months, but I've been there in a variety of capacities for a long time. And the past several years has just been unbelievable. I mean, more has been accomplished legislatively in the last couple of years than really in almost my whole 20-year tenure at Hunger Free. So it's very, very exciting. About $85 million has been invested by the state of New Jersey to address hunger and food insecurity. Some of the pieces of legislation that have passed recently, again, that Speaker Coughlin alluded to, there was, in the last session, there was a package of about 11 anti-hunger bills passed. That was just in the last legislative session alone. One of them created a statewide call center for SNAP, which is huge because people really can very rarely get through to anybody on the phone on the county level to have their questions answered and troubleshooting issues with the SNAP application. It can be a complicated program for people to navigate. And so that is a wonderful win. One of the other pieces of legislation required the state to expand SNAP outreach. There were several counties in New Jersey that did not have anybody doing SNAP outreach. So now the state has expanded the outreach and we have a very robust SNAP outreach happening in New Jersey at this point. All 21 counties are now covered with SNAP outreach and application assistance folks out there helping people to apply, which is awesome. But the big bill, the biggie that the speaker mentioned is the creation of a minimum SNAP benefit or the state SNAP supplement for certain households in New Jersey are only getting the minimum federal benefit in SNAP, and that is only $20. That $20 minimum benefit disproportionately impacts seniors and people with disabilities that are living in subsidized housing for a whole variety of reasons I'm not going to get into, but just is the way that the SNAP benefits are calculated and deductions that can be taken in the application process. And it really keeps some seniors, people with disabilities, even from applying at all when they think they're only going to get $20. So this is huge. I cannot stress enough. It really shows the commitment on the part of the state to improve access to healthy food for our neighbors in New Jersey. So if someone only gets the minimum benefit, the state will basically supplement that benefit with state dollars, so that those households will receive no less than $50. We know $50 isn't going to be enough money to feed somebody for the month or even a week in some cases, but it does give people that additional purchasing power. And like I said, hopefully we'll also incentivize households that are hesitant to apply because of the low minimum benefit amount to apply for benefits and get the help that they need. The other bill that the speaker talked about in his presentation is related to the child nutrition program, specifically school meals. That's the Working Class Families Anti-Hunger Act. What that bill does is it increases income eligibility for free school meals from 185% of the federal poverty level up to 200%. So it makes more children in struggling households eligible for free meals at school. And just to give you an idea of what 200% of the federal poverty level looks like, it's a little over $55,000 a year for a family of four. And I don't have to tell anybody here today that if you are trying to provide for a family of four and you're earning just over gross income of just over $55,000, you are struggling. And so these free meals at school will be an enormous help to these struggling families, and again, to broaden the pool of children who are able to get free meals at school. The Working Class Families Anti-Hunger Act is going to be implemented next school year. It was signed into law, but the school districts in the state needed some time to put it in place. So that will go into effect next school year. A couple of years ago in 2019, there was a piece of legislation passed that eliminated the reduced price category in school meals. That was implemented this year because, of course, all students were getting free meals because of COVID for the last 2 years. But now we've got, right, when I say broadening the pool of kids who can get free meals at school, now you've got all those children who would have fallen into the reduced price category are getting free meals at school. And as of next school year, all those children that fall within that 185 and 200% will also be getting free meals at school. So sort of incrementally, expanding the amount of kids who can get free breakfast and lunch at school, which we know is so critically important to their health and to their education, to their ability to focus and learn in school. We also, Hunger Free New Jersey also worked really hard to get the Hunger Free Campus Act passed. That was passed in, I think, 2019. And what that did was that created a grant program for colleges and universities to address hunger. So the Secretary of Higher Education released an RFP, and the colleges and universities could apply for the funding, and then they could use that funding for things like purchasing food for the campus food pantries, creating meal voucher programs on campus, doing SNAP outreach and application assistance with students. So really to have the state commit state dollars to address college hunger, which is also a huge problem, again, is really awesome. This year, the state released another round of Hunger Free Campus Act funds. This year they put $1.5 million in the state budget. So they increased it, which is wonderful. And they just released the RFP, and so colleges and universities will be getting some of those funds to, again, further address hunger on college campuses. And in terms of our priorities in 2023 moving forward, we want to expand the state and local work that we've been doing, and we are going to be focusing a lot of our attention on senior hunger. In New Jersey, only about half of eligible seniors participate in SNAP. They are extremely underserved by SNAP. So we want to work with our partners to make it easier for seniors to apply for SNAP, increase targeted outreach to seniors, specifically targeted to seniors. And then we were going to work on trying to get implementation of a standard medical deduction. Now seniors would have to itemize all their out-of-pocket medical expenses above $35 in order to get that deduction, which they can get the deduction. It often will increase their benefit amount. It would just be easier if people didn't have to, itemize everything and they have to show proof and receipts, to just have a standard medical deduction in place that seniors can take when they apply for SNAP. And again, that would increase their SNAP benefits. We are also going to, in 2023, continue to work on college hunger. That's been a big area of focus for us. And we are going to we're going to work to try to see if we can expand the pool of college students who are able to get SNAP by looking at ways to address the work requirements. There's a lot of work requirements for college students. That's federal regulation, but there is some ways that the state has been able to expand access to some college students by counting certain courses of study towards the work hours that are required for college students to get SNAP. So we're going to be focused on that. We're also going to be working with the state to formalize processes to reach out to likely eligible students regarding SNAP. During COVID, and there's been some flexibilities around college students and SNAP. The state has provided some materials to the colleges. We'd like to formalize that process and have the state use financial aid information to do targeted proactive outreach to likely eligible students, telling them about SNAP and where they can go to get application assistance. Our other priorities, we're going to focus on child nutrition, which has always been a big priority of ours. We continue to look at ways that we can broaden the pool of children who are getting free meals at school by advocating for eligible schools and school districts to opt into something called community eligibility provision, which allows high poverty schools to feed all kids for free. It's a complicated formula. It's a complicated thing. So to get into it, but really working with those districts that are eligible to opt into CEP to get them to do that so that they can feed all their students for free. And then finally, expanding access to after-school meals. This is a very underutilized nutrition program in New Jersey. All of these federal nutrition programs bring federal dollars into the state. I should point that out as well. We have only about 6% of kids getting free and reduced price lunch at school are also participating in an after school meal program. So we'll be focused on that. And we're going to be doing a lot of federal level advocacy around child nutrition reauthorization and the Farm Bill reauthorization, which is huge. So that's sort of a look behind and a look ahead in the world of anti-hunger and food insecurity.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So yeah, now we'd like to ask that same question about funding and policy priorities for 2023 to the other panelists. So Geri, Henchy, would you like to chime in?
Sure. Yes. Okay. Happy to do that. I think I'll answer the second part first. So what are the important kind of funding gaps in terms of needed action specific to the topic at hand today? So I'm going to answer this by turning back to the previously mentioned report, Hunger and its Solutions in New Jersey. So this report was an assessment conducted by FRAC and engaged more than 150 stakeholders and key informants. And we had focus groups with folks with lived experience, and we had a wonderful advisory group. So one of the three main goals and central to the recommendations to reducing food insecurity was that it would be important to maximize equitable food procurement and production policies and systems, that this is really going to be key. And I think it's, very focused on our topic today. So what did the stakeholders say was going to be needed in order to move towards that systemic change that we all want? All right, so leverage is our key word, leveraging funding and leveraging new positions. So we got three leveraging funding streams. The first is leveraging the funding streams that we already talked about. The second is leveraging the federal food program funding stream. So in New Jersey last year, that's over $4 billion a year to support families, and it supports many aspects of the food system, but it could support them better. And then it also supports emergency food through the food banks. So we looked at all the whole food systems, everyone together, and really came to the conclusion that there were these major opportunities to leverage those two kinds of money to support equitable community food systems. The third is leverage Rucha's program. It rated really highly. Support her program, support the New Jersey Food Relief Program, do whatever is necessary to help that program be successful. And then finally, we had leverage and support the new Office of Food Insecurity. And now we have that person, Mark, who seems great. So 4 points of leverage, 3 of them are funding, and 1 of them is a new office of person. So then to conclude, let me move on to a brief overview of our work and priorities in 2023 as it relates to New Jersey. Continuing on from the 2021-2022 landscape assessment and pilot grants, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Marco, who's here today, will be supporting a similar process of providing funding, bringing together key stakeholders, and really trying to move this whole initiative forward. And it's going to be called the New Jersey Food Security Initiative, and it will start in March, and we will be administering it. So in the first quarter of 2023, the priorities and strategies will be finalized. They'll be based on the already accomplished hunger landscape and stakeholder process, and then working with a developmental team, which is called Gretchen Swanson Nutrition Center. That will be put forward into what are the priorities and what kinds of strategies will be key for the New Jersey Food Security Initiative. In addition, the plans will include a resident-informed evaluation. So just to conclude, I think one of the key points made by the stakeholders, and we did all spend a lot of time together, was the importance and the power of collective efforts to address hunger in New Jersey. And so as New Jersey, and indeed the nation, starts to move beyond the public health emergency declaration, many of the expanded benefits and streamlined access are going to end. And so the impressive work that everyone is here today, all the participants, there's like 100 people on this webinar, it's your work that's going to make the difference, and working together, I think we can really keep making a difference and move forward in the face of this significant challenge that's coming our way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you everyone who came to the panel, and to our panelists especially. I'd like to end this panel, and Janine.